After discovering my wife of 28 years was having an affair, I devised a meticulous plan to make her life unbearable. Instead of confronting her directly, I gathered evidence using a spying app to monitor her texts with her affair partner. They were deeply involved, sharing romantic messages and provocative photos. Meanwhile, I began acting cold and distant, causing her paranoia and mental distress. I changed my routines, stayed out late, and became secretive about my activities, further unsettling her. With the support of close friends like Azzy, my older sister, and Joey, I escalated my efforts over a month until she began questioning our relationship and confiding in her affair partner. Her growing suspicions and uncertainty were a source of satisfaction as my plan unfolded. My wife, caught in her affair, argued with her partner about whether I might be cheating on her. Oh, the irony. Despite my absence being at a friend's playing video games, I continued my plan over another 4 painstaking months, driving her nearly to psychosis with my cold and distant behavior. I relished every moment as she spiraled. For 5 months, I maintained my faux affair, avoiding any physical contact with her, while she continued her relationship with Dave elsewhere. Then, one day, she called me at work, urgently wanting me home to discuss something important. I thought she might confess her infidelity, but instead, she questioned my happiness, citing my absence, lack of affection, and our dormant intimacy. She even asked if I was cheating on her. I couldn't contain my laughter. It was laughter at the sheer irony of the situation. I laughed uncontrollably, appearing to dismiss her accusation, but really reveling in the absurdity of it all. After composing myself, I returned home, kissed her forehead, and left her questioning in tears. Later that night, I checked the app and found her texting Dave in real time, sharing her doubts and fears. I confronted him tonight about his cheating, and he literally laughed in my face, fell on the floor, and laughed for a good 5 minutes. He doesn't care about my feelings anymore. Somehow, he's just gone. I know I've lost him. This is karma. I couldn't help but smile like the Cheshire Cat reading that. She was breaking. Dave tried to comfort her, suggesting if I cared more, she wouldn't have turned to him for what I wasn't providing, but her responses hinted at doubts about him now. During all this, I was executing another part of my revenge plan, getting my financial affairs in order. I had met with a family attorney earlier to start divorce proceedings, armed with a mountain of evidence proving Sue's infidelity. My lawyer advised preparing my finances for asset division. I took it a step further, quietly moving all our joint funds into my personal account and started apartment hunting. About a month passed. After the incident where I laughed on the floor, I didn't change my behavior towards my wife. If anything, I intensified it, pushing her further towards psychosis. This is where my friend Na enters the picture. Na and my wife have never been close. I've known Na since high school, 2 years before meeting my wife. My wife has always seen Na as a threat due to our close friendship, often expressing mistrust. One night, Na, i.e. Joey, and I gathered at Joey's house for dinner and drinks. Na, being mischievous, suggested triggering my wife by taking photos similar to the ones I found of her with Dave months earlier and posting them on my Facebook. We went through with it, and it took 2 days for Sue to find out. Some friends noticed and saw how close I appeared with Na, which deeply disturbed her, fueled by her belief that I was cheating. That night, she tried to scold me for the photos, giving me the perfect opportunity for my final blow. I brought up the photos of her and Dave from last year, where he seemed quite intimate. It was the first time I mentioned Dave's name during all of this. She looked stunned, desperately trying to explain those photos away, claiming he's just friendly with everyone. I pointed out her hypocrisy, revealing the pain she caused by lying about working late and hanging out with friends while she was with him. From then on, my wife became overly clingy and attentive, trying to initiate affection and intimacy that I coldly rejected. Meanwhile, I continued archiving our conversations with Dave. By this point, any desire to salvage my marriage had vanished. I had emotionally checked out long ago. She confided in Dave about my worsening behavior, her uncertainty, and her feeling that I hated her sentiments I couldn't deny. Then came the bombshell. She couldn't see Dave anymore. The guilt overwhelmed her. She feared losing me, believing karma was catching up. She confessed deep love for Dave. She still loves me and thinks she can save our marriage, but she's months too late. Dave pleaded with her, professing his love and pleading not to be discarded. That text exchange marked the end of their communication for a while. Through November and into December, my wife was in limbo, unsure of my feelings and unable to gauge if I was actually unfaithful. Dave persistently messaged her daily, but she ignored him, though she frequently checked her phone. Meanwhile, I completed the financial phase of my plan. Divorce papers were finalized. I secured a studio apartment nearby with a 2-year lease, and all my finances were moved to my personal account. By Thanksgiving, 8 months after it all began, I was ready to make my move. My 22-year-old son and his girlfriend hosted a family gathering, including my wife, our 17-year-old son, and her parents. To keep up appearances, I initiated affection with my wife throughout the evening, cheek kisses, hugs from behind despite feeling repulsed. It was the first time since October that I had touched her affectionately. Afterwards, my youngest son opted to stay over at his brother's place, leaving my wife and me to drive home alone. She thanked me for my kindness and support, oblivious to my true intentions. I held back laughter and told her I just needed time. That night, for the first time in a long while, we had sex. I saw it as one last act before removing her from my life. The next day, I checked my spy app and saw she had finally responded to Dave. He poured out his love, criticizing me for letting our relationship die and imprisoning her for 28 years. He, a 27-year-old, saw himself as a better match for her, even older than our oldest son. After Dave pleaded with her, expressing his love and asking for one last meeting, my wife responded similarly to their previous conversations. She affirmed her love for him and admitted enjoying their time together, but insisted she couldn't lose me, emphasizing that I'm still the love of her life. She suggested they could remain friends, but hinted their physical relationship. On December 4th, the final phase of Operation Shinobi Ghost began. With divorce papers ready and my new residence set up, I started discreetly moving my belongings out of the house. First, I had to break the news to my sons. I called my oldest over and, without divulging specifics, explained that their mother had been unfaithful, and I would soon file for divorce. This hit my 17-year-old son especially hard, having experienced infidelity in his own relationship recently. By Christmas Eve, everything was in place. Sue returned home as usual, oblivious to my preparations. We showered her with affection, which I reciprocated to maintain appearances. It was all leading up to my final move, a symbolic gesture of affection followed by leaving divorce papers on my side of the bed with a note saying Merry Christmas. Alongside my old phone and my lawyer's business card, I packed essentials into 2 backpacks and left the home I'd spent 23 years in for the last time. Sue is now blocked on Facebook, but I monitor the fallout silently. The packages exposing her infidelity arrived at their destinations by Christmas, causing a firestorm. Her sister confronted her, her parents condemned her, and my mother laid into her. She frantically searches for me, knowing I'm likely watching, but refusing to engage without my lawyer. Her career also took a hit. Dave and she were put on administrative leave. As for the final 2 binders, one went to my lawyer for the divorce proceedings, and the last sits in storage until I burn it in Joey's fire pit after the divorce is final. 2 weeks ago, I met Sue at my lawyer's office for the first time since cutting contact. She looked a wreck, barely holding it together. Her lawyer proposed terms for reconciliation, swiftly rejected by me. We agreed to a legal separation leading to an uncontested divorce, with me paying temporary spousal support until she finds employment. Afterward, Sue approached me outside, tearfully apologizing and expressing regret. She admitted never intending for things to escalate and asked if we could reconcile in a few years. I firmly declined, stating there's no forgiveness for her betrayal. I reiterated that I loved who she once was but now despised who stood before me, making it clear this would be our last conversation. That night, her father called, apologizing and praising me for being a good husband. He expressed disappointment in our actions. Later, I changed my Facebook status to divorced and acknowledged Mina, finding solace in her companionship amidst the upheaval.